Ian Chauke is a highly experienced, proactive, business-minded, and versatile mining engineer with over 14 years in both underground and open-pit mining operations. He holds a bachelor's degree in mining engineering from the University of Johannesburg and possesses several mining competency certificates as a testament to his vast understanding of the mining industry. Ian began his career at Extract Coal, now Glencore, and later worked underground for Goldfields and Anglo Gold Ashanti, gaining expertise in mine management and production supervision. Driven by his curiosity in the mining industry, he later transitioned to open pit mining, overseeing operations at a chrome mine, managing costs and driving profitability while maintaining operational control and efficiency. He later got the opportunity to build on his entrepreneurial skills as a contract manager, gaining experience in cost management, mine rehabilitation, and construction projects. Some of his key achievements include supervision of a Bancard offshore team, a multinational mining contractor leading high-speed production ramp-up. Secondly, production supervision on the iconic shaft deepening project, deepest gold mine in the world. And lastly, leading the planning and execution of multi-million projects. Throughout his career, Ian Chauke has demonstrated a strong commitment to safety, compliance, and optimizing mining processes. His leadership skills and adaptability have allowed him to excel in multicultural team environments and contribute to the industry's mechanization and modernization. Thank you.
Good evening, or afternoon, depending where you are in the world. Sorry, I think technology has gotten the best of me. So for a moment, I couldn't unmute, so it needed me to go on the interface side to sort of unmute. I am now back in, and I'm ready more than anything else.
Lovely, lovely. Okay, no, that's great, Mr. Chauke. My name is Tal, and I'll be interviewing you today just to find out, more about experiences in the mining industry and to, just draw as much knowledge as we can. We know you have a very busy schedule and would like to get right into it. So in 2009, Mr. Chauke, you walked onto the scene as a graduate mining engineer with AEL, with the aspirations of obtaining a blasting certificate. And now my question is, did you actively choose mining or mining chose you?
Yeah, funny enough, when I was reading through that question, I was like, okay, this is one of the most hardest questions. I think mining, it chose me. And then the reason is because I started out wanting to be, like a typical black child that grows up in the dusty streets of any township or whatever you are in the world, right? Is that the first thing that you've seen that has always painted Africa negatively is that, Africa's full of sick people that needs aid and so forth and so on, right? So I set up my career as a pharmacist. I wanted to be a pharmacist. So I went into the University of Witwatersrand, which is Wits, to study pharmacy so that I can bring in new medication. Perhaps I could have found a cure for COVID, So that is where I started out, right? Quite interestingly, I got rejected at the Witwatersrand University. And after realizing that my chances of coming up with a solution to HIV/AIDS and other things will never happen, so I said, what is the next biggest thing that I can join in? And I think at that time, the Nelson Mandela Bridge was still being one of the biggest bridges being built in Johannesburg. After so many years, one of the biggest construction that took place at that time in South Africa was the Nelson Mandela Bridge. So I set up to say, no, I want to be a civil engineer. So I went and applied for civil engineering. I did not make it in civil engineering. Wow. Hopefully, finally, I got accepted for mining. And what made me happy about mining, actually, when that choice came in to fall back on the third choice, was that I realized that everything around us is about mining. Everything that you see is made from mining, right? So and then I realized that actually there's no difference between mining and agriculture, because the only difference is that agriculture is renewable and mining is non-renewable. So I thought, okay, good, then become a miner. And that is how I feel mining has chosen me. Because from that day, I never regretted the choice. And here I am, 20 years later, I'm the most happiest man.
Lovely, lovely, lovely. And just to follow up on that, Mr. Chauke, do you have any, stand out highlights, perhaps from your days while you were still studying, in mining engineering, were there any special events that occurred that could have changed your perspective?
Look, I think, look, one thing about me in terms of my personality, I'm a people's person, right? I'm an interpersonal person, very multilingual, speak almost like all 10 languages in South Africa, right? So because of that, I used to engage quite a lot with guys that were senior to me and guys that were junior to me in mining. And I think through those interaction and my participation in the mining forum sort of helped me out quite a lot, because that is where I've sort of grew my leadership skills. And then also some of the people that are in the group, that likes of Uduman, who sat down with me and said, you know what, you're such an amazing young man, you're so dynamic, you should be a GM one day, the general manager in the mine one of the good days, right? I think that sort of motivated me quite a lot, sort of put more focus in terms of, do I really want to change the South African mining industry scene as a whole? And I think that sort of motivated me because it came from someone who was senior to me, who as a student themselves were much senior to me, and they believed in me as students. And I remember being called out to the HOD's office at the university to have coffee with one of the lecturers back then, and who sat down, two lecturers sat down with me to remember one, Basan Dwayne was one of them, and one of the other lectures as well. I'm trying to think. His name is running away last time, but if I remember it, I'll let you know. And they had coffee with me, also Peter Nortonbert as well. And they said to me, "You're a one of a kind because sort of the things you say in class are not they're not textbook knowledge. You sort of have your own way of looking at things." I think that sort of gave me that sort of confidence to say, look, you know what, I'm in the right path here. That assurance to say, when a lecture calls, I was like, look, your answers are probably not in the textbook, but they're the best answers for whatever they are, right? And I did well in my schooling years. I was not the top performing student though, but the most amazing. There's such a difference between being book
Yeah.
smart and just being genuinely have a different way of looking at things. I think that affirmation that I got from friends and colleagues and lecturers, and obviously in the industry as well, when we did mining visits, managers will always be amazed about the kind of questioning that I'll be asking. That was one of the highlights of my career, and the most amazing highlight of my career, the one that touched me and changed me entirely, was when I left, when I just finished graduating with the last mining visit that we did at school. After just before our exams, and we did the last mining visit, and I bumped into a guy that hired me to become almost like a technical director of a big investment company investment wing for the South African unions that sort of had projects in India, a 5 billion rand project in India, the coal mines. And they took me in. They wanted to put me as a managing director. Imagine, young as I am, I had no clue. I didn't even have a license certificate. All I knew was the little knowledge I had in class. And I remember after I did so well in the interview, because obviously I prepared for it, and I remember before I went to the interview, I went to church. I went to the priest and said, "Hey, do you think I should take this position because I don't have the experience?" And the priest said, "Do you remember when Joshua had to take over from Moses? And what was it like?" So I went with the confidence of Joshua into the interview and to take over Moses. So this was not a David and Goliath situation. This was a Joshua and a Moses situation. And went there to the interview, did so well. And I think it's just in that closing session of the interview, one of the guys asked me a question. It was an Indian chap, and he said to me, "Look, uh, India is a very sort of delicate industry to work at because Indians are very smart and they're smart, they're very shrewd, in business." And then he asked me a question: "Do I know what 5 billion rand is worth? Do I have can I quantify? Do I have an idea what it is? And have I ever managed 5 billion rand?" I'm like, "Yo, I'm just a poor young man from the township. The worst I could manage was the bursary allowance that they had to pay in school. 5 billion rand, man." My family and my parents will probably retire mining and I'll never come anywhere close to you know. And I think that sort of discouraged me. And I said, look, you know what, guys, I don't think I can handle 5 billion rand. And I sort of did not take the job, right? And I regret it even today. I wish it can come back now. And I'm saying that now over here, I can now do it. I can handle 5 billion rand. So yeah, so I think that those incident was one of the most inspiring stories in my life. And also obviously over and above that, I grew up when we had access to internet, being watching YouTube, and I would listen to CEOs that are in the mining industry. Got inspired by one of the guys called Bernard Swanepoel, who was the CEO of Harmony Gold at the age of 25. I mean, like, this guy did so well at age 25. I really wanted to be like him. He was called the Midas touch because of the influence he had in mining. So he inspired me quite a lot. And also I read, over and above that, there's also other amazing CEOs like the likes of Nonkululeko Nyambezi-Hater, who was the CEO of Ecor Coal or Asala Metal. And this woman spoke with such amazing conviction that sort of convicted me to become a mining engineer and to become a mine manager and a CEO in the future. And the likes of Siponko, who was the CEO of Exaro, some of the few black CEOs that made it very well in South Africa. And one and only Phuthuma Nhleko was the CEO of MTN, the guy that made MTN a success in South Africa and took it to Nigeria, Tobi, after you guys charged us. So yeah, I think those men are the men that have inspired me quite a lot, and some of the interactions. And that's it. Maybe nothing much from that.
All right. Thank you for that, Mr. Ian. Mr. Tobi, do you have something for us?
Yes, I'll just jump in and say I think the highlights from that answer is just take the jump regardless of what you don't know. Just take the jump. You would always find it better on the other side. That's one. And number two is having to learn from those who have gone ahead of you. You listen to a lot of CEOs because you see yourself modeling yourself like them. So I think that's something that I'd like to take home from you. But a list of questions here. We have one that talks about your apprentice journey. So what is it like to be an apprentice, and what was the route like for you? And would you advise somebody to go that route?
Yeah, look, of course. I mean, I like to say, look, there was one gentleman that I'll never forget for the rest of my life by the name of Joshua Ngoma, Zambian born. He became one of the most influential CEOs and general managers in South Africa in particular, who said to me, yeah, if you want to be one of the greatest mining engineer, you need to understand the hands-on application of everything that happens in the mine, right? So when I went into the mine, I went there without the mindset of saying I'm a mining engineer. I went there as a layman that says, I want to learn everything. Like, I want to understand why a machine drills, at what speed does it drill at, what is a drilling road, a direction, how long does it take to drill, how many people, like the whole setup of how to man a mine in terms of the amount of people that you need to work underground, all the intricate and pertinent aspect of mining, from the man that cleans the mine garden, the guy who says "Oga" in the gate from the garden of the mine, up until to the guy at the face of the gold face, because I worked in the coal mine and the gold mines. So I learned everything. I learned how to drill. I learned how to do each and every work that a general worker could do. And that sort of fast forward to now, sort of that appreciation of what these people do made me a better manager, because then from now, from a managerial position, you could make decisions based on an understanding that you have a comprehension without judgment. When you comprehend without judging. And that is what I've learned. I've learned how to operate machines. I can operate any mechanized mining equipment from both open pit and underground mining. So that I can do, and I know I understand whether can we achieve some of the marketing technique of first principle. Can we actually make this machine work and produce a first principle? I can prove that because I've done it myself. It became a good operator myself, so which helped quite a lot. So I think being an apprentice is very important. However, though, one of the biggest challenges in the mine is that the apprentice setup or template is not actually, it's not properly done. It's just done for the sake of, oh, we've got students in the mine, so let's keep them busy. So I did not follow the proper protocols of the schedule. I went and created my own schedule and my own template, and that is what worked for me. I followed that template, but I went extra mile. So if everybody has to do 50%, I did 100%. If people have to do 100%, I did 200%, because I wanted to be the best in the team, So yeah, it's basically always this mindset that says champions are not born in a ring. If you look at guys like Mayweather, what you see him do on a Champions Ring is already been what he's been doing on a practice ground. So what I practiced at that time, I knew I was going to be a CEO one day. I'm going to be a senior manager, CEO. So I needed to understand that by the time I get there, I understand the training field, what it meant. So that is the approach and the mindset that I had and I took with me at that time. And I mean, fast forward, I'm grateful to Joshua Ngoma for just that one tip that I should have made a big difference in my life.
Sorry, I'm curious. Typically, some people can argue and say that you could do all of these because you are a man. Do you think a woman will have been able to do this? I'm just curious, being from the place of leadership now.
Okay, look, what I can say is, I mean, come on, guys. If you ever typically look at it in a documentary, whether it's Al Jazeera or CNA, and what you typically see when they show Africa, you see this African woman carrying heavy stuff in their head and traveling and carrying babies along on their back. I mean, that alone. I mean, which woman have you seen a man walking in the sun carrying something as heavy? Hard to say that if women can do that, I mean, there's nothing wrong of them being able to do that at all. Women are very capable, and I think they're very capable of doing that. I think the only challenge is that which is a challenge from a policy point of view in countries across Africa in particular, is that we have not designed mining machines to suit women, and that's the only problem. Not necessarily that they cannot operate, they can. It's just that we need to design. I mean, we've seen that, right? I mean, you've seen how the companies like your typical BMW did an X3. The X3 was for ladies because they couldn't drive an X5, right? I mean, you see how we've moved from a normal a Range Rover, the biggest Range Rover, to a Range Rover Evoque, right? So women could drive a Range Rover. It was much smaller. It was not so bulky, and So I think that is what we need to do. We need to design foreshores that actually accommodate how women work, and I think they can do it. I think just that the system has been designed with a man of a mind in the perspective was from a man perspective as opposed to any just general worker. So I think women can still do that, and I have no doubt. I've seen amazing women that does amazing things where I work currently, and they outperform men. So that's my take.
Thank you. Thank you. So if you're a woman out there, just know that what is done, you can also do the same thing. Thank you so much. And also, if you're a businessman, I think the opportunity can also be there to create machines for women in the mining industry, or a businesswoman too. Thank you so much.
And I'm taking notes for that, Mr. Toby. Thank you. Yes, Mr. Ian Chauke, when we spoke about drinking coffee with the lecturers, I just started thinking to myself, if I would have been able to have a cup of coffee with my lecturers, and I don't think I would have gone for that interaction. It would have been hard to take, and maybe I would just like to know, Mr. Chauke, like, considering that you went through this engineering journey, are there any specific aspects of your studies you wish you had grasped more now that you're at this point?
Look, to tell you something, and I'm gonna be very honest, because sometimes we're not frank about such things, right? I think with all the knowledge that I've learned in the University of Johannesburg, I just feel like I could just only study the first year, and I could have still have made it and dropped out from first, and I still have made it in mining, because I think what happens in the mining, you literally do 10% of what you've learned at school. That's just basically what it is, right? So, and with that 10%, I think the most important thing that I've learned in my mining career is that wherever there's human beings, there's politics, right? And you don't get taught politics unless you study political science. And political science is not part of mining, so it's not a subject. It's not a major in mining, right? Mining is more than anything about stakeholder engagement, and you got unions. It's South African mining industry it's entirely unionized, and because it's unionized, it tends to have be very political, right? And sometimes it doesn't matter what you think you know. Is how do you sort of learn the tactics of being, how to navigate through discussions and boardroom discussions that are very difficult discussions to have. I think that's the most important thing. So some people are just not built for that kind of setup, and that's where I speak a lot of mining engineers are failing in that, and ending up in the technical side of mining where they sit in planning geology, where they're sort of outside of the rock engineering department, where the pressure is not as high as it is in the production side, right? So I think that to me is one thing that we lacked in the university, right? And also the other thing that we also lacked is uh, it is easy to go on Google and Google how to drive a car. It's very easy. We can all sort of understand what needs to be done, but it is one thing when you sort of feel it being in motion and then you feel like you're losing control. It's two different things altogether. So the question is that why do we study mining yet we do not have a mine that is we don't have a university mine that is utilized to literally make people understand that. I mean, one of the biggest things that I've seen, I mean, being an African, right, is that we learn in English, right, and with the problem with English is that it's a foreign language, and because it's foreign, I want to quote what Nelson Mandela says that when a person speaks to me in my language, they're speaking to my heart. But when they speak to me using a foreign language, they're speaking to my mind. So it's logic that gets involved, right? Is that can I comprehend when a person says something is drilling at a speed of 250 RPMs? Do I know how fast that is? If somebody says to me, oh, when you're drilling and blasting, fragmentation is important. Okay, well, the definition of fragmentation is quite clear because it means what is the size of the rock when it's broken down. But what does it mean to a machine that needs to load it? What does it mean? What does fragmented? Does it mean if it's too soft, how long would it take to load it? Do I understand the soft factor in relation to that? I think that we sort of lack the comprehension. So most of what we did in university was a memorization of things that we sometimes did not understand what it meant, right? It is only when you went to the real work and you realize, oh, okay, now I see. But I blasted, but the rocks are too big, then it becomes difficult to load. I'm like, yeah, you know what? I think I missed this part in the class. I remember this fragmentation subject at school, right? So that is the kind of things that sort of which is the disadvantage of the education in South Africa. Like a lot of people say is that education is a key. Yes, it is a key, but whoever is a doorkeeper can change the locks. Eh? So we need to understand that it takes a different kind of an attitude as well as a person, that you need to have a different kind of attitude so that you can actually know how to knock in certain doors. Certain doors are not locked. You just need to know how to knock, and education cannot open it. And but what is key is obviously attitude and implementation that gives it power. So yeah, that is just basically my 10 cents from that.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Chauke. And, on to our next question, over the last 14 years of your career, you've had quite, the extensive industry experience, moving from companies like Anglo Gold Ashanti, working with companies such as, Goldfields, as a production supervisor, as a supervisor, and as well as working with contractors as big as South 32 and your groups such as HBIS and MB Resources, and, just considering how impressive your career is, I would actually like to know how your first steps as a young mining engineer were, especially with reference to the supervision of the Goldfields program, where you were, supervising the deepening of that shaft.
Look, where I did a shaft deepening project was in Anglo Gold Ashanti. Before I went there, I started off in Goldfields. I think starting off in Goldfields, you'd realize that. So I studied in the coal mines before I moved into the gold mines. So, but I spent not so long, a considerable years, because I was there for very brief, because it was just a year, and then I went into the gold mines where most of my mining career has been at, right? And the reason that I went to the gold mine is because the gold mining industry represented at that time, still is, one of the most difficult industry in the world entirely. In particular, the deepest gold mines in South Africa that I've worked in, is I didn't go there because of any other reason, but for the accolades, to say, it's similar. Studying in Harvard means to a lot of people. So the gold mining industry has been the Harvard of the mining industry as a whole. If you make it in the gold mine, I will quote what was it Alicia Keys, that in New York, concrete jungles where dreams are made. So the mining industry is where dreams are made, and it was the CEOs of the future of the South African mining industry and Africa as a whole were made in the gold industry. And you see that quite a lot if you study some of the movement of those managers in South Africa, that most of them were born in the gold mines. I'm sorry to those that will take offense on this. The most successful mine managers, from what I've seen, always come from the gold mining industry that produce one of the most greatest mining engineers and mine managers and CEOs. And so I went there for that, so that I can be verified. So it's as good as a Twitter verification of validation. So I went there for validation more than anything else, so that when I go in any mining industry, I'll never be second guessed. If I can go anywhere in the world, in Australia, the first thing that I'll tell them is that I've worked in the deepest gold mine in the world. You cannot take that for granted. And that is basically what it is. So what am I trying to say to young people is that if you understand what you want and you're setting yourself for success, is that you need to start where you need to start. Very important where you start, because you can't want to be the most influential mining engineer where you work for a small mine in a corner somewhere that is not even listed. No. You have to be in a JSE listed company, in a New York listed company, so that when you say I was there, the CV speaks itself. So the weight of my CV doesn't come just from my experience, but it comes from who I worked with. And that is basically what my career strategy was in particular.
Okay.
Perfect.
So Toby?
So just before we go to the next question, I'm sure a lot of us have questions in our mind that would like to ask the guest. So if you have a question, please use the Q&A button or use the chat button. And by the time we are done with this session, we get to that session where we ask your questions. And please feel free to do that. So you've mentioned some things about how politics is involved in every organization you work with. You've spoken about how you have to manage people and how you build and you have interpersonal skills. So I'm just curious, out of curiosity, some of these things are not born. You are not born with it. So how did you develop these skills, and how have you been able to navigate and use these skills properly? And give us an example of a place where you used it and you believe it was effective.
Okay, Toby, I'll be very like from what we've learned from being unconventional or conventional with my answer. Look, Toby, this is what I wanna say to everyone that is listening, to the listeners as well, is that all of us as African child, we are born from very serious problems or challenges in our own home, right? And little do we know that some of these challenges that we face, whether in our families and in our small cycles in society, that they become what we call interchangeable skills or interchangeable experiences, right? I mean, I've being a firstborn at home and leading both my sister and my brother, so I first learned leadership there. So that's the first place where I learned leadership, and learning to give, learning to get to the point of the humility of heart, right? That sometimes leading is about putting other people's first. And I think subsequent to that, fast forward, being in the University of Johannesburg, being voted in as a class rep, and also being in the leadership position within the mining forum at that time, similar to SMES, right? So that sort of taught me how to lead and how, I mean, leading my brother and my sister. So leading my sister made me understand diversity in mining because she was a lady, right? So how typically the challenges of leading women in mining will be like. So that I've learned from my sister. And having to navigate a very strict mother as well sort of taught me that you will deal with strict women in the mining industry. You will deal with a difficult sister, similar difficulties like a sister in the mine. And I think how I navigated about dealing with my sister sort of comes back now, because I see the very same women in mining as sisters. And so I know how to sort of know where to press and where not to press, right? And also dealing with my brother, was a very quiet person. It showed me sometimes you can't be hard on people. Not all people respond to harshness and hardness, as demanding as the mining industry is. So what I'm trying to say, every experience that we've gone through as an individual has transferable skills that it builds us to be ready for the future. So if you want to know who you are in life, look at your challenges, look at your problems, then clearly tell you whether you'll be the CEO of the biggest mining company in South Africa or not, or in the world for that matter, because your challenges and struggles that you go through, your rejection, your fights, your failures and everything that tries to break you down is actually preparing you for something greater. It's just that sometimes some people give up before they realize it, that they're actually on the road to success. I think that is it. There's nothing else. It's not rocket science. I think even rocket science is not that difficult, because Elon Musk got it right. I think it's not it's not brain surgery. It's not brain surgery.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Sort of curiosity, you've mentioned that, yes, you went to the hardest commodity to go learn some skills in that space. That's gold mining. So reflecting on your career now and the trajectory so far, what is the most exciting project you've been a part of, and what made it enjoyable? And also, you can also flip it and tell us the the non-exciting one too.
What I hate the most about mining is that you need to wake up early in the morning. Oh, I hate waking up early in the morning. The earliest I can do is 6 o'clock. Anything earlier than that is just literally very stretching. Um, so one thing about me, so also what I also had a challenge with about me is that something that my mother taught me very well is that you need to know yourself, right, so that you don't second guess yourself. So I went into the mining industry where at that time it was very entrenched with more white management and leadership. So white people at that time did not like it if you challenged their thinking or challenge their ideology and how they view things. So that was so I was what we call, what is this? There's this series that is playing now currently on Netflix, which is a spin-off from Sheldon. I think it's Sheldon. Yes, I didn't have a filter.
Young Sheldon, yes,
Yeah,
yes,
young
yes.
Sheldon. So when I started
The
off
big
in the
bad,
mine,
yes.
I didn't have a filter, and I call it a spade. And sometimes, yeah, that kind of an approach sort of rubs certain people off in the wrong place. But with time, because I knew what I was talking about, it sort of helped me. But I think if I have to do it again, I'll not do that again. So I didn't have a filter. So that was a bad experience because it got me into a lot of trouble. In terms of performance, I did very well in terms of performance. I didn't struggle managing down in terms of, because of the interpersonal skills, it was easy to manage down, right? And I think where the filter issue became an issue was managing up. I did not know how to manage up, and I think sometimes in certain positions I stayed longer, not necessarily because I was not doing good, it was because I did not learn how the etiquettes of how to manage my time, and how to sort of navigate through the boardrooms, and with certain leaders. I think that for me, was a disadvantage. You know, rights are not always rights in certain places. I think that was the biggest mistake for me in particular. And other than that, I mean, I did well in terms of productivity, in terms of working place, in terms of working with people. And I think the worst that I also had was working with unions, where, because I'm also politically inclined for some of the things that I've learned in university. But yes, it didn't go so well for me because sometimes I think we because we are Africans, we want to do things in an African way, and sometimes there's certain places where if you don't draw the boundary in terms of professionalism and being a guy that is nice with people, people sort of tend to take advantage. And when you fight back, there'll also be the ones that take advantage of. It's very difficult to sort of navigate out of that situation. I think that's something that I've learned, and I think some of the position that I stayed longer is because I was still learning how to do that. And once I got it right, it became much easier to move forward. So yeah, I think that to me is my 2 cents.
Thank you, thank you.
Very powerful take there, Mr. Chauke. And maybe, just out of, maybe curiosity, I'd say, I actually realized that in your, bio, there's actually a certain point after acquiring some work experience that you actually went back to school and, studied at UNISA with the School of Business Leadership. And, and right now you're still studying. And I just want to know how, going back to school to study executive management and corporate strategy changed your career trajectory.
Okay. So when I went to school, I think I went to the UNISA to study MPL, which I did 99% and I dropped off. I think maybe I'm just putting it there because 99% of all the modules counts as something. I paid for it, for goodness sake. To put it there. If anybody wants to know, I'll give them my results to say that 99% of the course modules. So I went into business lead MBA because it was a master's in business leadership. So the reason why I chose that as opposed to MBA, which is administration, I think the biggest challenge we have in Africa is the dumbing down of leadership. I think one of the greatest statesmen after Nelson Mandela, we saw Barack Obama and His Excellency Nana Akufo, which currently is one of the most amazing leaders. You can see how he speaks like a statesman indeed, and I think that. Sort of become sort of the direction that I wanted to be a leader, right? And so I studied something more on leadership instead of administration. I think there's a lot of at least some improvement in the country in particular as far as an administrative part of things are, and even in particular if you look into government. But I think the biggest challenge in Africa as a whole is leadership. So the whole leadership in Africa is dumbing down. So I wanna be that leader myself. So I did that. So one of the important things, major subject that I chose was corporate strategy. And then the interesting subject that I studied in that was a concept called corporate parenting, where how do you, as a CEO, sort of give away certain subsidiaries that you don't have the right parenting skills to sort of make them a success, right? I mean, for instance, some of us grew up, some of the discipline that I've learned in my life is because my uncle was a better teacher of discipline than my father. So my uncle would be a good corporate CEO to manage me as an individual as opposed to my father, because my father lacked certain abilities in teaching me certain things. So I think with corporate as well, corporate parenting is about that. Not all we as corporate, as head office headquarters, don't always possess the skills to know how to sort of manage certain business units or subsidiaries, and because of that we tend to fail and see a lot of money going into the failing businesses and cross-subsidizing from the ones that are doing quite well. So the question is that when do you get rid of such companies? When do you sell it off? Or vis-a-vis, how do you hire the right team in order to make sure that you navigate that, so some of those subsidiaries to become a success? So yes, corporate strategy is an added value. And I think this is the challenge that we have in South Africa and Africa as a whole. That sometimes you'd find that maybe the best way to teach mathematics in school is to take the top mathematics students in VETs to go and teach maths as opposed to leaving it to teachers, because maths is a different subject altogether, right? And I think that is where we sort of lose this balance. And I think, yeah, I think that's just basically how I see it.
Okay, this is quite an interesting take. Anything from you, Mr. Tobi?
Yes, just before we round up, I think we'll take two more questions, then we begin the question and answer sessions. We have some questions already in the chat that we'd like to run through very fast. So for me, you've talked a lot about your management skills, how you've been able to navigate through everything. I love the knowing how to differentiate, how to manage upwards and manage downwards. So what do you do for fun? You seem to be a very serious person. You know, you know the goals, right? So what do you do for fun?
Hey man, like one of the things that I do for fun, you see that I like wearing suits with sneakers. It's always suits with sneakers all the time. So I'm very down. I love my sneakers, and also what I do for fun is I'm a photographer, right? Which was the reason that my beautiful wife chose me, because she said like I will take good Instagram pictures. so so I'm a photographer, and the reason that I chose photography is that because I like writing and I'm a bit lazy to write. So social media sort of helps me to write the pockets of wisdom that I can share. So photography about me is that I wanted to be a painter and an artist. Growing up listening to Picasso and watching Picasso as an artist and learning about some of the greatest paintings that has ever happened. Also, I couldn't paint, so I couldn't draw. My sister can, and my nephew can draw. I couldn't draw to save my life, so I started photography. I started photography as something that I could pass time with, because one thing that I did about it is that how do you take photography that tells stories? So I started taking photography that is storytelling, so that to capture not only just any storytelling, but my journey in mining, how to capture the life, the energy of miners that goes underground and they come out, the winning spirit of South African miners, and that is what I wanted to capture in photography, and I did well in that, and I still continue to do that. And even when I travel, is the stories of what every travel experience meant for me. I could put it in a photography, and one of the reasons that I did that was that if I ever have to buy Toby a birthday present, I don't have to buy it. All I need to do is to take all the photography that I took and the stories that I wrote around this photography and give you a coffee book that is produced, made by me, right? And when you have it, you have me and a piece of me. And the other thing that I do a lot of mentorship for miners, and I also do a lot of mentorship for entrepreneurs, because I was a dropped out entrepreneur myself. Tried some couple of businesses, didn't work out. That's why I went into contracts mining. So then I wanted to learn contracts mining. So I assist a lot of South African entrepreneurs in terms of how to sort of position their businesses, in particular in terms of how do they write proposal letters? How do they get those meetings in place? So those smaller details that people don't get right, and how to develop business models for their businesses. So I do quite a lot of that on the side. And yeah, and then consultancy, that's what I do and it's for fun because I enjoy it. It comes out natural. I don't need to read textbook with 100 pages to explain to people how they can mine. So that is what I do quite a lot of times. I give a lot of people, I monetize on my advice. So if for each and every voice I invoice, and monetize.
Thank you. Thank you. Tal, your last question
Okay.
before we go to the.
Okay. The Chauke has been quite enjoyable session. We've gone to know you quite a bit, and perhaps, I would just like to know, looking ahead for you in your career, do you have any long-term career goals or projects, that you're excited about, and perhaps actually would like to share with us, maybe just to give us a teaser or something to think about, something to watch out for, maybe.
Okay. The answer, there are two answers, very clear-cut answers. One, I want to own a mine. I
Okay.
want to own a mine. So that's my dream, and I know I will own one. One, two, I also want to do something that has never been done before. I see, if you look at in South Africa being a leader in mining in particular, and you look at some of the mining countries in Africa that are more very small artisanal mining, is to say, how do we design machines that are made in South Africa to sort of help people that are doing artisanal mining somewhere else in the world so that they can do it more efficient and more safe. That is what I want to produce. I want to produce equipments that will mine in artisanal mining areas, and also I want to own my own mine. And I can't wait. It probably would have to be whatever it is, whatever minerals. I mean, if you look at where the green energy, this whole green concept and rare earth minerals, I want to do that. I want to break up boundaries. I want to be the Dangotes of this world that own all refineries that nobody has ever thought about will ever happen from a black man in Nigeria. I want to, the man that build, cement. I mean, who does that? I mean, that is what I want to do. I don't want to do conventional stuff that everybody else is doing. If rare earth minerals needs to be mined in Africa, I need to own the refinery that processes rare earth minerals. That is what I want to be part of. And that is the language that I want to speak. And that is what I want to provoke in every young person here to say, look, guys, the whole world is coming to Africa for its mineral endowment. And I refuse that this mineral endowment becomes a curse to our nation because we don't know how to manage it. And that is basically my thing to say. If I have to own a mine, I'll do it differently to what people are doing it currently, and make it more efficient. And it'll be by Africans for Africa. That's it, nothing else. And that's my plan.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's beautiful. Thank you so much for that. Two things I'd like to say. One, we would like to more than happy to host your photos on our website. We'll be glad to do that. And number two, we are happy to support you through the journey from the financing to whatever we can do to ensure that the Chauke mine is out there. We are ready to do it.
It will be called Azania. Azania will be the name.
Yes, Azanian mine. Okay, to the questions. Tal, will you go first?
Okay. So the questions from the audience, Mr. Chauke. The first question I'm reading is from Tatolo Lesedi. And they're asking, how your experiences were undertaking your studies for your, mine overseer certificate and your mine managers. Any advice for him?
Okay. So let's start with mine managers. To the Lesedi, here's the problem and the challenge with the mine managers, and the reason why a lot of people don't sort of pass it, right? And they fail is because, look, I mean, if you look at the questions that have been asked in the mine managers examination, they're quite similar, but we still fail. But we have the answers, right? We go on an exam with the questions, but we still fail. And the reason why is because there's something that we failed. It comes to what I just said now, that we fail to comprehend the question. So a question will ask me that, okay, should an accident happen underground, what would I do, right? Somebody dies underground, what would I do, right? Okay. So now when you read the law will say that the manager to ensure health and safety. Why do you quote the word health when the person died underground by something that is that maybe he was full of ground, right? So now when you respond, you don't say the manager must ensure health. You remove the word health and say ensure safety. Safety in what? In FOG, right? The other things that are not related, you take them out of your keywords. That's all you need to do. Nothing else. So the problem with a lot of you is that you quote the word health where it's not necessary, and you quote the word safety where health is concerned. So you need to remove things that are not supposed to be there. And that is one. Secondly, stop writing as a third person, because it's a man manager's examination. So you are the manager. You cannot say the manager shall. You say, I will, because you in that context are the manager. So that's how you should quote the law. And I think that's where a lot of people sort of fails and struggles to pass the examination. In terms of MO, take it. You see, now here's the tricky part, because a lot of graduates don't want to do the MO, because once you get your mine manager, so exempted from doing MO. The reason why I did it, remember, I had the experience in underground. Remember, I was operating things and I did things, so it was easy for me to pass MO. Because MO is very tricky, because that's why they ask you these tricky questions or things that if you've never been there, it's easy to be caught with your pants down, right? So what made my MO easy is because I took the MO book, the MO notes, right? All the notes. And I went underground and did all the practical work of the MO. And where I could not, I used my contacts for phoning mines that have certain facilities that are not there in my mind. So for instance, if I want to see winders, shaft sinking, I went to Marion Roberts to go and see the shaft sinking training center in Carltonville. So I understood shaft sinking from a different perspective, and I would visit shaft sinkers. So if I wanted to understand mechanized mining, I'll go to a mine that is mechanized and call a friend who's a manager and sort of see how they do it. And I do a mine visit there. And then that sort of helped, because I had an understanding and an appreciation. So in that way, it actually helped me a lot. And some of the problems that I had in the mines when I was still a graduate became, and how I dealt with them became questions on my MO. So it was easier to answer them because it was first-hand experience. So I think that is good. If you have time and energy to learn as much as you can, you want to be hands-on, it's easier to pass your MO, but then take the notes and sort of work your experience through the man overseer's sort of body of knowledge or content, whatever the case might be.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mr. Chauke. Anything, Mr. Tobi?
Yes, going to the next question. It's coming from KM. I want to know how the mine do with their trust, and also in long time, our countries does not contaminate. Is that clear?
Yeah, I think it's clear. I think what they're probably asking us to say, obviously, we're using a lot of things and the result is waste. So the question is that what are we doing? Look, I think some of the waste, we have waste sorting companies that are on board who sort of take all the different kinds of waste and recycle it, because predominantly most of it is still work. So it's easy to sort of recycle some of those. And also, yes, and obviously above that, because there's a lot of tons of waste that is coming out from the mines, I think there's an opportunity there in terms of how do you convert some of this waste into other usable products. And I've seen something in Nigeria that was quite interesting recently, where the guys took tires and converted tires into paving bricks, you know.
Yes.
And I also know a lady in South Africa currently that takes some of the mine waste and create a brick that has a better MPA than the normal brick stock. So it's things like there's an opportunities and things like that I think that like I said, from a policy point of view, because we don't understand as Africa the mineral endowment and how to deal with it and navigate with it. So there's gaps in terms of that particular market. And as you will know, the subject of entrepreneurship is a challenge in Africa in particular, because why? There's a difference between a business of cutting hair and making shoes and entrepreneurship where you innovate. I mean, innovation is what we need. And I don't know, maybe some smart people around will tell me, what's the difference between a startup that has a dash in between, and the one that is one word? See, things like that leaves you understanding that when we don't know where to put the dash or to remove the dash, it's the challenges we're facing as a country in Africa. That if we don't invest in startups, we will never. I think Tobi will agree. I mean, if you look at Nigeria, one of the biggest economy in Africa, I still say that. I think the challenges there in particular is that none of that money that is made in the black market is taxed, and because of that, we don't see the GDP per capita to add value in terms of infrastructure development in Africa in particular. And I think South Africa, we just so lucky because you can see the value of the tax in terms of what you see in the screen, right? But yet it's still not enough. We're not investing a lot of money in terms of entrepreneurship and innovation. The opportunities are there. It's just that we don't have the leaders that are more capable to do that. I think maybe my next ambition, I might just become some minister of some sort of entrepreneurship. We don't even have a minister of entrepreneurship. We have minister of small business. You see what the challenge is. A minister of small business cannot comprehend innovation and entrepreneurship, and they won't see that. They want to find things that are duplicated. That's my 2 cents.
Yes.
Mr. Chauke, I've been adding your 2 cents, 2 cents. Now it's 10 cents, Mr. Chauke.
The 10 cent already.
I know, yours is
Good
almost
accounting.
$1 now.
It's almost $1. Good accounting. Financial skills.
Okay, and then we have a question from Mr. Shepard Sandu. Very good to see him here. And he's asking that, from an investment perspective, what's your view on the future of chrome in Africa?
No, look, I mean, from an investment point of view, we have, in South Africa in particular, we have a lot of abundance of chrome, right? And the other challenge is, if you're asking from a South African perspective, is that so chrome is not a commodity in South Africa. That is why you see a lot of illegal mining that is happening to it, because it's not regulated as a commodity, right? It's defined as mining because of mining is defined as an exploration of winning minerals, whatever purposes that you want to use it for, but it is not. So there is an opportunity. Why? Because alloys plays a very great role in terms of how they mix it with your metals, your steel, in order to produce your mag rims that we see some of the beautiful cars in the world, and many other things that are medical and so forth. So there is a future in chrome. It's just that the current players in South Africa in particular, if I have to say it, is that it has become sort of a black market in such a sense that because it's not really regulated and as a commodity, so it's become a black market. So there's a monopoly in it, and a very serious monopoly that the guys that are actually running it got plants and processing companies all over the show, and they're stealing from themselves to sell to themselves. So that's the reality of the chrome industry. So, but there is a big future in it, and I think China in particular is the biggest consumer of chrome. And again, we are selling it as not a finished good. We're selling it as process and nothing else. We have not, as a raw material, we've not added value on it, and which is a problem.
Yes, thanks. There's one here from a fresh graduate, I believe. His name is Joseph, and it's asking that how can somebody approach job hunting? He said it's messaging somebody on LinkedIn, which is the mine manager on LinkedIn, a very good approach, or what would you recommend in this day and age?
Okay. How do you, so is he asking how do you approach a manager in mining in LinkedIn?
No, basically, how do you approach job hunting? And should he approach a manager via LinkedIn? How should he approach job hunting? Should he approach a manager via LinkedIn? 2 in 1.
Oh, no. I didn't hear the first one. I hear the manager part. The one is what?
Yeah. How does he approach job hunting, like looking for a job?
Oh, job hunting. Okay.
Yes.
Good. Look, that is a very sad. I need to say this. It's very sad, right? And it's a sad story, and I need to be very honest about it, right? How many mines are there in South Africa? Let's start there, right? Okay, whatever amount of number of mines we have in South Africa, really between the University of Johannesburg, University of Pretoria, University of South Africa, and the University of Johannesburg, how many graduates are we producing in mining? It's a lot of graduates, right? Now, mind you, you still need to balance your mining industry between your normal sort of general workers and operators. And now you will not want to hire a mining engineer as an operator as a general worker, unless if you want to sort of step down to those kind of level of jobs and work yourself up. The challenge is that the industry is inundated with a lot of graduates, and some of them very top performing graduates, right? And I think the problem is, which is very problematic, is that what Ian can handle in mining, not all of you can handle it. So probably why do you always want to approach a mine? Why can't you go into banking? Why don't you go to consultancy? Why don't you want to go work at Nedbank or a bank in South Africa? So at least with your knowledge in mining, you'll be able to help funding mining projects or mining small companies. We don't see it that way. We want to go into, who said you can't work at the bank and be a bank manager and sort of advise? Who said you can't work in a hospital? I mean, imagine. People that work in the hospital are doctors. Doctors are not engineers. I mean, they're not engineers. The coal that needs to come into a hospital to run the chambers, the electrical power station. Why don't we go there, right? I mean, the problem is that we think that just because we studied. Remember, studying is to gain knowledge. It's for educational purpose. It is not, and it can open any door that you choose to open, right? you're not limited to mining if you're an engineer, because once you're an engineer, that you're taught to think in a different and a broad way. So go to the hospital. I mean, let me shock you, right? So DBS in South Africa created an X-ray that sort of searches people not to steal diamonds, right? Now, imagine taking that idea into a hospital where instead of taking a person into a radioactive room, X-ray room, you could just push an X-ray past a person or make it a door where you walk past and then you are scanned as you walk past. And then already we know what's wrong with you by scanning that. I mean, these are the things. I mean, the hospitals have challenges. We need engineers there to come up with solutions. There's issues in municipalities that need engineers to sort them out. I mean, it's a minor. I mean, it will be easier to sort of understand as an engineer, because why? If you look at the coursework of engineering as a syllabus, right, you got managerial subjects, soft skill subjects that are taught, so they can work anywhere, right? Nothing limits. People think that if you're a miner, then you're stuck in being mining. No, you can work anywhere. You can work in civil engineering companies and do tunnels. That is mining. So mining tunnels is some form of mining, because civil engineers don't mine, and people don't see that in that way, and that's the problem, that they sort of limit their career to that. And unfortunately, the pool is too big that will accommodate anyone, unless if they want to go outside of South Africa. And I don't think they will go out of South Africa, because you know what? There's only few South Africans that knows how to learn languages and quicker and faster than anybody else. And some people struggle with languages even locally. I don't know how they're going to make it outside of South Africa. They can make it overseas in Australia. I don't know how they'll make it in Nigeria. At least I know how to say Cheneke, so I will survive.
Okay, so Toby, I'll ask you to help me a little bit with the questions. It looks like we have an influx of questions, so maybe we could just pick the last two to finish on time as well.
Okay, great. So a lot of people have asked about job and how to get job. So I believe that last question has answered you. There are people asking about how they can get into your mentorship program. Do you have a defined structure for that yet, so they can get into it?
Okay, Toby, look, I need to ask you, I need to ask you, and I was with a friend of mine just now that I asked to do the same thing, to say, I need to sort of maybe through AfriMine to sort of set up a link from that where I would have session at certain time zone with mining engineers, and we could go through either assisting them with the mine managers, or either assisting them with how to apply, either assisting them in terms of making their CVs looks proper, in either assisting them in terms of preparing for interviews, or financially if they need money to go and attend for interviews. Those are the kind of things that we need to do. If they want an exposure in a mine, that I can use my contacts to get them to visit mines and exposure. So I think perhaps what we need to do, not to just talk and make this thing a whole lip service, is that if you guys can assist in the administration of setting it up, I will unveil myself to make sure that no one that goes through the mentorship program doesn't get the amount of help that they require.
Okay, yes, that is very, very possible. It's something we can do. We have a structure set up for that. So I can guarantee that everybody who has joined this event and also who have been a participant of this can get a Google link to sign up, pending when the website will be ready. So you can sign up for that, and we would communicate in due time how the structure of the program is going to be. But we can get it up. Please drop your emails. And we would make sure to get across to you. I think they have your email, so don't worry. Everybody get an email and you can get ready for that. All right. We'll take the last two. Okay, there's somebody saying they're going to own a mine too, which is great. Thank you. Somebody's asking, I don't know if you have experience with limestone. What is the best method for extraction of limestone from limestone mines? Apparently, it's more like an aggregate. Do you have experience in aggregate industry, aggregate mining? Maybe you can share one or two things from that space.
Okay, no, I don't have experience in aggregate mining, right? But what I do know, similarly to when my open pit experience in the coal mine, predominantly most of it is about mining it and then crushing it. Similar to I've mined chrome as a base metal, so if it's open pit, you still need to remove the top and then come in and blast it. If it's blastable, if it's soft, then you can dig it out and then sort of process it. I don't know the processes that comes out from that. I have not had, like I said, they're not a big market in South Africa in particular where they're listed. You can join a particular company and say, I'm mining limestone. very, very small mining companies that does that are not listed. They're more in the other industry, the service in different industries. So I have not done that, but I think if I needed to find information, I can find information. I think there's a company that AfriMine in South Africa does that. So
Yes.
maybe I can link you up with them.
Okay, great. So we have one last one, and we'll round up this Q&A session. It says, I've noticed that what is taught in training centers is totally different from what is happening on the ground. How do we once convince the workers to work accordingly to the standard while also factoring safety, production? How do you experience workers? Yes, just.
Look, I mean, that's a very fair question, and I like what the gentleman is asking. When I was in Goldfields, our training center was underground. So Goldfields training center is underground. Anglo training center was underground, was 6th level at that time when I was there, right? The tricky part is you put a student underground and something happens. You don't have control in a student. No one wants to take a control over a student, right? So that's where the challenges are. I think the reason why that is, right, is that I think the regulatory, which is in our case, the sort of the DMR, the Department of Mineral and Energy, should look at to say, how do we start opening up some of these mines to turn them into training center and not penalize the mines should a fatal or an incident happens in those? Because the problem is putting graduates that are still playing games in the training center, they're still playing games, they're still playing horseplay, and then they start doing horseplay in the wrong area, something goes wrong. So I think people are scared of the accountability of managing students. It's not that it cannot be done; it can be done. One, and I think more than anything else, nobody wants to take accountability for training center. I don't think there's a mining manager who wants to have training people working underground and under his watch. I think maybe that change of attitude in the industry will change things, but it takes people that are who wants to be groundbreakers and movers and shakers. The current people that are here in mining, unfortunately, the reality of the industry is that unless men like us continue to continuously fight the system, is that it remains like that and makes it very quite difficult. That I wouldn't mind to have part of, like even currently right now, I'm working on a part of my section to become a training center for mechanized mining. So I'm busy with that. So I've got some of the old machines that were a problem to get them to work, to start working in that particular training center. So that I'm doing, and over and above that, we're doing a mock-up. But I'm not really keen for the mock-up. It's good for first-time person to be on the mock-up first before they move underground. But I am busy with that, and at least I don't have any resistance. I've got a lot of support. So yeah, I think hopefully that becomes a success, and we'll call it the Ian Chauke Training Center.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I think for me, it's been a beautiful time, and I'm sure for all of our listeners too, it's been absolutely great to have you and to interact and also learn from your experience. Tal, any last words from you?
No, not many, but I just want to thank you, Mr. Chauke, for coming onto our platform. We can't wait to work with you to facilitate those trainings, for people of AfriMine. Thank you so much, Mr. Chauke.
I'm Mr. Chauke, any last word from you?
Now, from my side, I want to say thank you to you, Toby and Emmanuel, for organizing such an amazing event, and to you as well, Tal, and to many more. And I hope this thing grows to have so much impact all over Africa globally. And it looks small. I mean, just as the young boys when they started Apple and then they started Google, it's just young people playing around ideas. And I think let it be a success. Africa needs help. Unless we start making that noise, unless we become the voice ourselves, we'll never have impact. And I think perhaps the next bigger step, I want to see AfriMining speaking in Davos. You must speak in Davos. Yeah, there where international decisions are made. That is where
yes.
we there's nothing wrong with our current leaders, just perhaps other than the fact that I think they need to hand over the baton to the younger generation. And this is the platform where we train and prepare ourselves. I mean, speaking to people from different countries in Africa sort of opens up my mind that how the world works other places, right? And I think that to me is what we require. And I have no doubt that maybe in future, also praying through the God's intervention, that maybe AfriMine will be one of the policy influencers in terms of Africa in mining, in terms of all these geopolitical and positioning and all the different kinds of constituencies in Africa, and also to be part of the Pan-African Parliament in Ethiopia, to have influence in terms of mining all across Africa. I think this is their time, and the time is now. And that is basically my parting words, and to tell everybody that's out there that is whatever you want already wants you. So don't be hard on yourself. You will get there. It's a matter of time.
Thank you, Mr. Chauke.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And yes, thank you so much. Emmanuel, we hand over back to you. Thank you.